reason why I brought those two things up is those are examples of the three facets of this series: finance, ethics, and activism coming together. You have ethical problems.
Okay.
You have Black Americans being actively and consciously pursuing an economic interest,
Okay.
so that they can secure, so that we can secure our financial future. Ethics, activism, finance. So let's go with finance. Finance is the ownership piece. Finance, again, banks are economic engines. We own the control of dissemination of monies and subsidies into our community.
Correct.
Ethics. Now, ethics and activism get complicated.
They do.
Pretty
They do.
quickly.
That's why I was looking like,
Yeah.
Okay.
They get complicated.
But I'm gonna let you tie it in. I'm gonna let you tie it together.
So here it is. We have ethical problems facing the Black community. Therefore, the Black community needs to actively and consciously pursue an economic interest together so that we can secure our financial future. So not only should you tap into the Our Palette Network and join our initiative by encouraging, changing, innovating how we think, all that good stuff, right? We gotta take action. We need to recognize, strategize, mobilize, and revolutionize. And just for context, I bank with Chase. My brother banks with Wells Fargo.
I bank with Chase.
My father banks with SunTrust.
Yeah.
I recently switched to 2 Black banks within the past 4 months. One United Bank and Citizens Trust Bank for a credit card at Citizens Trust, and I have a checkings account at One United. Because of these problems I'm figuring out, because of these because of these ethical issues, you have these corporations, that institutions that may or may not have the Black community's best interests at heart. And in case you think I'm BSing, okay, let's talk about the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Let's talk about the Community Improvement Act. I believe that is in 1977. And then you have the Equal Housing Act in 1968. You have redlining, gerrymandering, all of these things. Some are even illegal now. I think redlining is illegal now.
It's illegal, but it still happens.
Right. The reason why, those are ethical barriers that Black Americans face.
To progress.
So how do we supplant that? How do we turn the tide? We have to be active. Active and conscious. So activism comes in, is where we actually pursue strategic steps in pursuing and securing a better economic future.
When it comes to activism, or at least when I think about activism, it's not an abstract thought, right? It's physical actions, as you said. So how do we take all these concepts that you just shared with us and actually put them into action? Like, where do we go from here?
All right, so here's the kicker. Recognize the good and the bad. The bad is that these banks that we currently bank with have been literally oppressing African Americans and the African diaspora for decades, centuries. If you want to fact check me, feel free to go back to episode 1. But also recognize the good. The good is that we are already economically empowered. How? We spend trillions of dollars every year as a community. Now, with that same trillions of dollars, recognize the plethora of Black-owned businesses and celebrate them, uplift them, elevate them. Recognize that we have Black-owned alternatives that can be put in place for when we vacate and when we leave these oppressive corporations and institutions. Next, strategize. Come up with a plan. Don't just buy Black for a week, a month. Those are great. But come up with a plan to buy Black comprehensively, to buy Black holistically across the board and for long term. Example, you go to a Black-owned restaurant for brunch with 3 other friends. If the 4 of you drop $80 each, including the tip, right? Y'all having a good old time with them bottomless mimosas, all right? So you feel good about dropping that $300 bill at a Black-owned business. But throughout the rest of your week, you're stopping at the grocery store to pick up some bread or some toothbrushes. You just copped you a brand new kitchen appliance, or maybe you bought some brand new kicks. Maybe you stopped at the liquor store on your way home and you spend it all with your local bank debit card. Maybe snap a couple pictures on the gram to post all your new products. And lastly, you go back to that same restaurant the following Sunday to eat brunch with your friends. Now, that $300 bill y'all dropped last week pales in comparison to the weeks long worth of spending you spent outside of the community. All right, so talk to me, Ben. How do we supplant this? Step 3, mobilize. Make the switch. This is my favorite part, y'all, because for every product I just referenced, there exists a Black-owned alternative. Let's just run it back. Let's go.
But throughout the rest of your week, you're stopping at the grocery store to pick up some bread or some toothbrushes. You just copped you a brand new kitchen appliance. Maybe you bought some brand new kit. Maybe you stopped at the liquor store on your way home and you spend it all with your local bank debit card. Maybe snap a couple pictures on the gram to post all your new products.
And lastly, you go back to that same restaurant the following Sunday to eat brunch with your friends. Last but not least, we revolutionize. We create this loop of encouraging each other to change how we spend and innovating how we think. We are changing our community as we know it. We are actively, consciously pursuing economic interests so that we can secure our financial future. When we own financial control, we are not at the mercy of giant corporations that may or may not have our best interests at heart. And we're not even asking Black Americans to stop spending or spend less.
Right.
Dude, the spending power is already there.
It is.
Just redirect it.
Yep.
Because clearly our economic engines are not well maintained. They're not well lubricated. Can I be real for a moment?
Yeah.
Let's take a step back and realize that 2020 was a rough year for everybody.
In
right?
many ways.
All 350 plus million people in America? I can't remember. So many people in the country, across the world, experienced COVID-19 in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Black Americans, I can only speak for my tribe, Black Americans had to deal with COVID on top of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Jacob Blake. The list goes on, right? What am I saying with this? I know those are sensitive topics because people lost their lives, but what I'm saying here is, what if we had the money? Let's be real. A lot of these, we went to the March on Washington, the one back in August, right? I think it was what, 57-year anniversary. A lot of those things cost money. It costs money to run events like that. It costs money to fund political action committees.
Yeah.
Imagine if we did have a better financial infrastructure to fund political campaigns, put more Black sheriffs in office so they don't gun us down in the street, to put more Black women, to put more gay, transgender, everybody we need to put in office so that they have our best interest at heart. Imagine if we had a better financial infrastructure, because again, it starts with the money.
Yeah.
Banks are economic engines. So the key here is recognizing that, coming to terms with that reality. I'm sorry, $1 trillion, y'all. Less than a percentage of that we own. Just let that marinate. Just let that marinate. You get a paycheck for $2,000, but you can only use $10 of it. You spent the rest of it. You just spent it on whatever, but now you gotta pay your bills with
10%.
Buy groceries with, give your mom some money with $10.
Yeah.
Let that sit. Let alone take care of yourself. You gotta eat, put gas in your car, but something happened to the other $1,990. You just spent it.
Crapped it out.
You just spent it. You didn't invest in yourself.
Yeah. So what's the move? How does this tie into our palette?
Yes, our palette, by the way, is a community initiative that I started with a few friends of mine, colleagues, Sherry included. Long story short, our palette is a Black business network, right? And the mission of our palette is to encourage each other to change how we spend and innovate how we think with our people, our product, our colleagues.
Show them the shirt.
Yeah. And boom, our people, our product, our palette. So, we have this initiative with our palette, right? And then it's meant to encourage people to literally change how they spend, and innovate how we think, which is why we have these conversations. Black Business Network, right? On a more, positive note, right? Our pilot basically gathers business together. We put them on a network, a dynamically changing network, and we want to connect users with businesses. So we have an app actually coming out later this year where users can track their spending at Black businesses, and you can earn rewards. Just like, your credit card company, all those things, and you get rewards, you get perks from Black businesses for investing in Black businesses. So we're creating a recursive way to buy Black. That way we actually sustain that. That way you can do it long term, not for just a week or just for a month. You can do it with friends. You encourage each other to do it. You can do it with family. It's on your phone. Everyone got phones today. It's right. Excuse me. It's right in your pocket. You have access to Black businesses. The result is for us to revolutionize Black commerce. Period.
I was just about to say, you keep talking about the whole point of the series is the Bank Black dialogue, right? But then you just talked about investing into Black-owned businesses. So I'm like, where does the piece about financial ownership come into play? And as you were talking, I was thinking, the fact that we're tracking our spending, we're seeing how our money moves, that's giving us more economic control over where our dollar is being spent.
Physically
right?
see it.
So it's kind of like a mind dance that we're doing with people, because we're not outwardly telling them, hey, we're really trying to change, we are outwardly telling them we're trying to change the way they spend and innovate how they think, but we're not outwardly telling them we're trying to get you to have more ownership over how you're spending your dollar. But that's really what we're doing. We're getting people to have a little bit more ownership and influence, and kind of put a hand in the pot a little bit more with where your money is going. Because once you can understand where you spend your money on a day-to-day basis, you can change where you put your money on a monthly, on a yearly basis. You can change where you put your where you bank. I just wanted to add that note. That was interesting, pulling it together.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Because it's all about strategy. Right. Too often we have these movements and initiatives which are great. They just don't get traction because the strategy is not there. The long-term strategy is not there. People just do it for a couple likes on Instagram. They chase the clout, and that's it. But this is a marathon, y'all. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted for over a year. And during that time period, we were forced to create for ourselves. That's what we have to do, period. Times have changed now. We don't have to worry about not getting a seat on the bus, but things are different. The proverbial bus is still there. And we are still being scrutinized. We are still being ostracized. So we have to mobilize and strategize so that we can actually gain our financial control.
Thank you so much for swapping roles today and allowing us the opportunity to really hear, what's brewing in that mind of yours. This has truly been a privilege and an honor, and I'm excited to see what our palette has coming up next, as I'm sure y'all are too.
So, you excited about the app, bro?
I am excited about the app. I love apps. They're easier for me to use than the internet. I'm not gonna get on the internet. When it comes to stuff like this, I'd rather have the app on my phone. It's easily accessible versus me trying to go to a website and then I get distracted on Instagram. So
Right.
I need an app. Cool. But y'all stay tuned for the next episode, right? There's another one coming, right?
There is a final episode, and we are going to release the topic beforehand to really get y'all's attention. It'll be debate style. So all of the participants of this series will come together and talk about one very interesting topic. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in to the Bank Black Dialogue.